Yeah, so there he is saying that essentially you cannot eradicate poverty without first solving climate change, which makes absolutely zero sense whatsoever. And he goes on to say that 45% of the financing that they're going to be offering from the World Bank now is going to be towards climate change agenda. So combating climate change, 45% of their financing. It's not going to go towards feeding the poor. It isn't going to go towards development for jobs for people in the developing world. It isn't going to go towards ways to alleviate the stress that average everyday people feel when they're not able to put food on the table. That's not what it's going towards. It's instead going to go towards this climate change agenda of shifting from the carbon industry towards carbon neutral industries, towards reducing our carbon footprint, which, look, it's a good goal to have. Certainly, it's a good goal to want to clean up the environment. It's a good goal to want to halt behaviors that cause our environment to be worse. But the average person, he says, he even admits, he says the developing world sees climate from a slightly different lens than the developed world. Well, yeah, no kidding. The developed world, when somebody's sitting there with their Starbucks, sipping their latte, saying we've got to combat climate change and we have to reduce our carbon footprint. And here I am with my reusable green bags, and I recycle and I do all of these things in order to reduce. And it's great that that happens. I mean, more power to you. But the person who's in the developing world, who's not able to feed their families, who doesn't have education for their children, who's not able to afford for medical treatments because they're so poor, they're not thinking, I'm poor because of climate change. That's not what they're thinking. That's not even in the top 10 or even in the top 20 or even the top 100 of their concerns. They're not sitting there thinking, my nation is poor because climate change causes all of these issues. They're thinking my nation's poor because the corporatists inside of these large countries come through and siphon off our resources, or they bomb the hell out of us, or they sanction us to death. It's the rest of the world being unwilling to do business with regions, causing these people to remain poor. And we saw this, for example, just in my own experience of looking at, Vietnam. My family came from Vietnam. Many of my family members are still there. And when there were the sanctions and the embargo on Vietnam, my family was poor. And as soon as it was lifted and there was an economy that was allowed to flourish in Vietnam, my family's no longer poor in Vietnam. It's now the economy there is drastically shifting. And guess what? Their government didn't shift, still communist.